So we're going to watch a short video now from Carson Dunlop. I'm just going to close this down. So earlier I mentioned that Carson Dunlop has been around since 1978, but another claim to fame is that all of their inspectors are graduate engineers. So they come into the industry with a higher level of education, and then they are trained for a full 3 months before they're allowed to go out and start working in the community. In fact, Carson Dunlop is so well recognized literally all across North America, in the States and Canada as well, that inspectors fly in here, take their 3 months of training, and then go back to their home communities to work in their new profession.
Hi, I'm Bob Dunlop with Carson Dunlop and Associates. We've been a home inspection company for the last 25 years, and I'm here to tell you about the process of home inspection. Typically, it starts by you going out with your agent and finding the house of your dreams and making an offer to purchase. And typically, that offer has a couple of conditions in it. It's usually conditional upon financing and conditional upon a satisfactory home inspection. So once the financing is all taken care of, we normally get a panicky phone call from you or your real estate agent, and we rush out to the house and meet you there and begin our home inspection. When we start our inspection, we try and look at all the major components of the building and indicate to you what condition they're in, what has to be done in the way of repairs, and priorities for those repairs. We look at the structure itself, we look at the heating, the plumbing, the wiring, the condition of the basement, particularly for dampness, all the interior finishes, doors, walls, windows, ceilings, fireplaces, etc. Poke our head up into the attic and have a look at the insulation, the ventilation, the roof structure. And on the outside, look at chimneys and roofing and eavesdropping and soffits and fascia and brickwork and porches and garages and driveways and just that long, boring list of components that houses are made up of. And what we'll do is tell you what needs to be done in the way of repairs, when those repairs have to happen, and how much they're likely to cost. A couple of things that we're not there to do. We're not contractors, so we don't do any of the work that we suggest be done. I think our credibility would be right down the tubes if I said, this house needs a new roof and we happen to have a special on roofing the month after you close. Or my Uncle Louis in the roofing business and here's his card. The other thing we don't do is we're not appraisers, so we're not there to comment on the value of the house. We're engineers and we can talk about the nuts and bolts, but we certainly can't talk about what it's worth. So let me walk you through a typical inspection. It takes roughly 2.5 hours to do one, and if you were to divide that up into thirds, we would spend roughly a third of that time on the outside of the house, a third in the basement, and a third in the living quarters. Let's start on the outside. We have these spiffy little ladders with us that fold out forever and a day, and we go up on most roofs. If you want to come with us, you're more than welcome. You can climb up there with us, but I should caution you that it's much easier to get on a roof than it is to get off a roof, and sometimes embarrassing when we can't get our client back down. There are some roofs that we just can't get up on. A wet cedar roof, for example, is downright suicidal. And so in circumstances like that, we use high-power binoculars, and we walk all the way around the house to get a view of every angle of the roof. The other things that we want to look at on the outside of the house would be the structure itself. We want to make sure this house isn't moving. And we do simple things like eyeball along the horizontal mortar joints to make sure that they're indeed horizontal. If they aren't, we've got a structural problem. We also line up the corner of the house with the house next door. Those two should be parallel. Other things that we're going to look at would be doors and windows because they're fairly high-ticket items. One of the other things we look for on the exterior, believe it or not, is a wet basement. And most wet basements are caused by bad eaves troughs and downspouts and poor exterior grading. If the land slopes back towards the house, you're going to have a wet basement. Or if a downspout collects all the water off the roof and dumps it in one corner, you're also going to have a wet basement. So we'll follow up on those things when we get inside. When we go inside, we head to the basement and continue our structural inspection. Down there, we get to see the condition of foundation walls and the conditions of floor joists and columns and beams and all the things that hold up your house. We're also paying attention to those little critters called termites, because termites can cause a considerable amount of damage in your house. It's not something to be alarmed about, but you will find termites in most parts of the city. You'll never actually see a termite because they live in the ground. They don't actually live in the house. They come up into the house to eat wood and partially digest that wood and take it back down to the colony where they live. They build little shelter tubes to get across the exposed foundation walls in your house, and it's those shelter tubes that are the tip-off to the fact that we have termites. Once we're finished with the structure, we can continue our look on the inside for dampness. And we're going to start in the areas where we found clues on the outside, bad grading or bad downspouts. In areas where we can't find any dampness, especially houses where the basement's been recently refinished, we intensify our search. And we'll usually find clues in areas that they didn't refinish, like underneath the basement stairs or in a furnace room. We also carry moisture meters with us, and we can use those to check elevated moisture levels in things like baseboards. Beyond dampness in the basement, let's move on to the heating system. What kind of heating system is it? Is it forced air? Is it hot water? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? How old is it? How long will it last? What will it cost to replace? We'll cover all of those things. And then there's the plumbing. Is the supply plumbing copper or is it galvanized steel? Galvanized steel plumbing hasn't been used for the last 50 years or so, and it only has a life expectancy of 45, 50 years. So when we come across any of it, it's pretty well at the end of its life. The waste plumbing could be one of several materials. It could be ABS plastic, it could be copper, it could be galvanized steel, it could even be lead. And lead is the only one that's problematic. Once we get out of the basement, we go room by room, looking at the condition of floors, walls, ceilings. We want to make sure that each room has an adequate heat source and an adequate number of electrical outlets. We check windows and doors. We particularly pay attention to closets, because inside closets, people never redecorate. They redo their rooms on a regular basis, but the inside of closets get left, and there's lots of clues in there of past problems. One of those closets is going to have an attic access hatch, so we can poke our head up into the attic and have a look at the amount of insulation, ventilation, and the roof structure. And so that's about the size of it. Once we're finished the inspection, we're going to detail all our findings in this great big book. We'll give this to you at the end of the inspection, pick up a check, and we're basically done. And before I leave, I just want to leave you with a couple of thoughts. First of all, no house is perfect. We've inspected more than 50,000 houses, and there's always something that we find wrong. If you're spending more than $200,000 for a house and the doorbell doesn't work, who cares? It really shouldn't affect your buy, don't buy decision. On the other side of the coin, I've had clients totally underreact to the information that we've given them. They're so in love with the house, they're so enamored that I can come down out of the attic and say that I found evidence of termites all the way up in the attic, also evidence of a serious fire in the attic, but the good news is the fire killed the termites, and the roof leak put out the fire, and they look at me and say, yeah, but is there anything serious wrong with it? We love this house. Your relationship with Carson Dunlop doesn't have to end at the end of the inspection. Certainly, you should feel free to call us if you have any questions. But in addition, we'll give you a valuable tool to help you take care of your new house. It's called Manage My Home. It's an online service, and if you go online, you can fill out an inventory that tells us what's in your house. With that information, we'll develop a personalized maintenance program just for you. And if you have any questions online, you can simply ask an expert. It's a wonderful tool. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Because I can't be with you today, I thought I'd try and answer some of the most commonly asked questions. The number one question is always about the qualifications of our inspectors. We're a bit of an anomaly. We're a consulting engineering firm, and all of our inspectors are engineers. But that's not the norm. You might be surprised to know that the home inspection industry is totally unregulated, and virtually anybody can declare themselves to be a home inspector. So it's a really important consideration. What are the qualifications of the person who's checking out your house? We're often asked about insurance, and indeed Carson Dunlop and Associates does carry appropriate errors and omissions insurance and professional liability insurance. But again, that's not the norm. There are many home inspectors who are uninsured. A lot of people wonder if a home inspection comes with a guarantee or a warranty. The short answer is no, it actually doesn't. And the reason for that is we can't completely take the house apart. So for example, if you moved into a house and a week after you moved in, the main drain under the front lawn collapsed, it'd be pretty ugly. You'd have sewage backing up into your basement, and it wouldn't be pretty. But short of digging up the front lawn, there's no way that we can tell you that that's about to happen. Now, there are things we can see in the house, and if we tell you something and we're wrong, we'll certainly make good. If we tell you you have a 200 amp electrical service and it turns out to be 100 amps, we'll buy you a new electrical service. So we know it makes sense to inspect a resale home, but what about a brand new house or a condominium? Well, let me start with condominiums. There's two kinds. There's townhouses and there's high-rises. A townhouse condominium has its own roof, it has its own furnace, its own electrical system, so of course it makes all kinds of sense to inspect it. But a high-rise is a little more of a gray area. What you might want to know is not just the condition of the inside of your unit, but you also want to know the condition of the parking garage, the pool, the recreation center, and frankly, we can't look at all of that for the fee that we charge. What you're best to do in a situation like that is have a look at the reserve fund study that might have been done for the condominium corporation. It should have answers to those questions. A brand new house is a completely different animal. It hasn't stood the test of time, so all we can do is compare it to a building code and make sure that the builder built it the way he was supposed to. There's two ways we can go at a brand new house. We can inspect it for you before you take possession, before you sign off on it, in other words, or we can come in and look at it after you've lived in it for 11 months. The full warranty on the house is for a year, so if we come in at the 11-month mark, we can do our inspection and you can point out things to us that you've discovered as well. So best of luck with your house hunting, and I hope we'll see you in the future.